Alrighty, there we go. Test. Welcome back. What do we got going on here? We've got points. We made the points. The player can pick up the points. They can exchange the points. We did the dash. Some sounds. Okay. Now the sounds for these dots, for these points, emit from the object itself. So it has a local audio stream player. Now, that kind of means that if there's 100 or 200 of them, all of them are going to end up playing the sound. So if we like do this, and then come back, all of them get picked up. Well, at least they're not really playing it at the same time, but if there's a lot of them, that's just going to be annoying. So we need to limit how many times these sounds play. One way is if we're using a regular pickup audio stream player. Oh, it looks like it's an audio stream player 2D. So it does have positioning data, but it doesn't sound like it. No, it kind of does. So happening on the left side of the audio. You know what? That's fine. Let's handle something else, and then when the point thing becomes a problem, we'll deal with it. We have the camera carriage that we made a while back. I think it's about time we programmed it. So we're gonna save the script to scripts, camera carriage. Dang it. Go away. Template script. So we want the camera carriage to position itself between the two furthest players. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna collect all the players by using the node group, player group, and figure out which two players are the furthest away from each other. And the camera will situate itself in between the average position of those players. So for player in, get tree, get nodes in group, player group. Okay. So we need to average. Yeah, we need to. Technically, we don't need to detect the two furthest players. I think we just need to collect everyone's positions and average those two between all of them. Let's try it. So var average position vector 2 0, or we can just do this. Then here we're gonna add to this player global position, and then at the end we'd like to divide by how many players there are. Okay, get the size of the group. That gives us an average position, and then we're gonna set the global position to this average position just to see if it works. Okay. Okay, yeah, that kind of works. So if more players are on the right side, then it will prioritize their position over the one player that's on the left. Which, honestly, that seems like a pretty good deal. Oh yes, something else I wanted to do is, when you destroy the grass, the point shouldn't be picked up right away. Let's see. We have our grass. Maybe what we can do is give the point a timer. Call it pickup delay. This might cause a problem. This might cause a problem because if we destroy a piece of grass, a point is dropped and it's within our grasp, it's within the detection range of the area, but the timer hasn't run out yet. By the time the timer runs out, it's still within the range of grabbing, which means it is going to not pick up because the player has to literally walk into the point space to pick it up. So the pickup code in that case would have to run in the process over and over and over, and detecting if the point has not been picked up yet, and if it can be picked up, and then once it becomes pick-upable, even if it's already been within grabbing range for a little while, only then it's going to pick it up. Okay, so var can pickup. Start as, I guess we're going to start as true. So if we choose to spawn some points in the level, they can just be there and can be pick-upable. Can pick up. We're going to take this timer, set it to 0.5 seconds, one shot, and auto start. And then we're going to get it to run a timeout signal. And when it's done, can pick up will become true. Now, when the grass drops it, right here, new point dot can pickup be set to false. So it has to wait for half a second. That did not work. Why not? Can pickup equals false. Oh, right, the player does not care about that variable. Hold on a second. Okay, so right here, this is where we detect when the point enters. When the point enters the area. Okay, this is where the point enters the area. That's okay. This is interesting. If it enters the area, it's a one-time event. If we log it, then we might have an issue where if two players are standing next to each other, they're both detecting that the points are held, so they're both likely to start grabbing each other's points continuously. Well, that's a bit of a conundrum. You know what we can do? We can do this. So we keep this here. We go to the point. And the way the point is going to work is that when it is spawned, we're going to disable the collision shape. And when the timer runs out, we're going to enable the collision shape. False. Now, the way this would work is that if the point has a collision shape that is disabled, the area node would not be able to detect it. So when the timer runs out and the collision shape becomes enabled, it will be captured by the area node of the player. So it will look like as if it has entered the area, when in reality it was just standing still, already being in the area, and its collision shape came online. The area node detects that as if the node entering its space. So, in that case, in the ready function, we can just do if can pickup is true, I guess we can do this. Just talk to the collision shape. Disabled equals not can pick up. So if this is true, we can pick up. That means it's not true, so it's false. Disabled is false. So it's not disabled. It can be picked up. If this is false, then not false is true, so disabled becomes true. Okay. And thus, we've handled it within... There we go. Nice, that's what I wanted to do. So if the player... Whoops, okay, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's be careful. If the player walks around and destroys a piece of grass, they have to actually, like, you know, walk over the point to pick it up. Oh god. Get back here. Okay. It's gonna be annoying as heck. Let's get the pickup sound to be a little bit quieter. Cool. I feel like maybe our slice collision shape should be a little bit more encompassing of the player. Ah, dang it. Oh, keep clicking outside. Oh, you know what? I know what we should do for the gun. We should give it a little bit of a recoil. Again, just a tiny little quality of life improvement. So it's -13. We set it to -10, and then make it go back. Okay. So let's see, weapon process. When we shoot, the held weapon position on the X becomes -10. Okay, and then we're gonna tell it to slowly return. Plus equals -13 minus position divided by 10. Beautiful. I love it. It's not a node by itself. We have to include the full path. And there we go. Okay. Oh. Okay. Almost. Except this is a one-time event, isn't it? Nope. Weapon process runs in the process. Nice. Okay. That is cool. Okay, while we're here, let's do melee swipe SFX. Oh, cancel. Swoosh fist, which is what a melee is. Nice. Yes, can I import it like this? Nope. Doesn't do the sprite thing where you can just drag and drop a resource on the sprite node. Gotta do it the boring way. Okay. There we go. So when we press melee, it will do that, and play. There we go. Nice. Let's do a sound pitch adjustment. Pitch scale equals rand f range negative 0.8 1.2. What? Keep clicking outside. Maybe that's a bit much. 0.9 1.1. What the? Oh, negative 0.9. No. That's a bit much. We'll go into the slow-mo. Okay. Cool thing is that when you go to full screen, we actually see more. There's no grass generated here. What the heck? What is that? What's the position here? Negative 192. Ah, it's 192. Here we go. Let's do a quick particle. Quick destruction particle. 32. 32. We're going to do a gray one so we can color it in the game. What the? What? How? Oh, God. It's gonna be like a piece of grass being destroyed. Now this is gonna be a particle. Actually, it doesn't have to be a particle. We just do... Yeah, I think it's much easier to do this as a single sprite. Grass break particle, except not engine. Assets. Okay. I mean, just for neatness sake, I could set it up as a sprite sheet. Grass break. And then make use of an animated sprite. The animated sprite does accept animation frames, sprite frames. Sprite sheets. There we go. Grass break. Why does that have onion skin in it? Come on, man. The plugin doesn't yet know not to export onion skin. Okay. There we go. Now we're supposed to tell it how many frames we have. Horizontal or vertical, which by the looks of it, it's 3 and 2. Yes. And then we just select all the frames. Nice. We're gonna call it break. It will be invisible. And we're going to have animation. How fast is it going to be? 12 frames? $24 frames? Maybe. I guess we'll see. It's not looping. Let's hide it. And then when we destroy it, which is here, we're gonna play the animation called grass break. It might have enough time before the sound effect reaches the end. If it isn't, then we're going to we're gonna have to wait for the animation to finish before destroying the object. Yeah, that works. I can see the last frame stays on the screen for a little bit too long. Maybe. It works. Let's get the color right. Ah, there is no last frame. So perhaps we should do this. Okay, that's undoubtedly going to mess up the coordinates. No? Really? Oh, yeah. It just added it as the last frame. There we go. Yeah, now I don't see it. So I think these other frames got messed up. Delete, 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 delete. Delete. Yeah, 3 by 3. Okay. Roughly around where? Maybe a little brighter. Yeah, I got the money. Bang, bang. Cool. Okay. Now, the next logical step, I suppose, would be to set up the multiple weapons. But since we're doing multiple weapons, we might want to consider how are we going to store these weapons. Okay. Do we go with a list style inventory as we did before, or do we give them each a little tiny grid inventory? The tiny grid inventory will force the players to think. I mean, okay. It would give us an opportunity for adding a couple of additional upgradables. Like, for example, how much of a certain ammo you can carry in a slot. So you can say, in one slot you can carry 24 rounds of shotgun ammo. Right, 24 slugs. 24 shells. But when you use an upgrade totem, upgrade stone, it will allow you to carry 32. And then 64, or however many you would like to add. How did we handle it before? Before, the amount of ammunition was stored hard-coded in the player. So if the player had the limit, the player themselves had a limit. They couldn't carry more than a certain amount of a certain type of ammo. Okay. Now, you know what? Maybe it is a good idea to use grids, because the grids would give the player the agency to say, oh, I'd like to fill up 5 of my inventory slots with shotgun ammo. Cool. You know, power to you. That's 5 of the inventory slots. They won't be able to carry anything else. I suppose that would be a reasonable way to handle it. Sure. Let's do that. It's going to be a small inventory slot. Okay, we don't need Blender for this. Okay, I sure hope I saved it in the assets. Yes, I did. Alright, export. Oh, I don't need advanced. Just export PNG. Engine sprites inventory slot. Sure. I guess we'll just make a folder called UI. We'll do a little bit darker. Okay, now, in order to make the inventory not be subject to scaling issues, we need to make it inside of a canvas layer. Let's make a We don't need a panel for this. This is just inventory slots loosely floating in the side, at least for the time being. I guess I can do a panel, but set it to no style, style box empty. And if I decide to do something else, I could just replace it, and I don't have to go update a bunch of node names. We're gonna do a grid container. And now we need an inventory slot, so we need to prep one. An inventory slot is going to be a button. It's going to use an icon. Maybe not an icon. Yeah, this is going to be theme. Stylebox texture. And inventory slot is going to be using this stylebox texture. Nice. Okay, now we do have to keep in mind that we won't be able to make use of things like focus on pretty much anything because we have multiple players, but we only have one focus. So only one element can be in focus. So we'll have to fake it. Okay. Objects, UI. Cool. Let's get this slot here. Grid container. Oh yeah, we need to probably give this a minimum size. Right now it's 8 by 8. That's tiny. Although that could be just the right size. Oh yeah, there we go. 3. It's just going to be 3 per column. And there we go. Now, right now, every player is going to display their inventory in the same place. That is indeed tiny. That needs to be at least 32 by 32. Or 24 by 24, we'll have to see. Yeah, we could probably display it to the side. And that's okay. Cool. Now, each one of the players is actually displaying their inventory in the same exact space. So, we need to make it so that it assumes the position where the player's at. And we can do that. Let's get ourselves a separate function called UI process. We'll forward delta into it. And now we can go here, declare func UI process. And we're going to make this panel assume the position next to the player. Or at least right now, assume the position of the player. Now, to do that, I think we do get viewport. And then on the viewport, we can unproject the position in user interface space that correlates to the same position in game space. In 3D, we have to use a camera for that. In 2D, I think it's just a matter of talking to the viewport. We know that it's going to give us a vector 2 value, so we can just bypass anything that isn't a vector 2 value. It's probably going to be a method 2. Get mouse position. Transform to get screen transform. Hmm. 3D has unproject. 2D... I think it might be on the canvas layer, actually. The canvas layer is probably the one that does it. Get final transform. Returns the transform to the canvas layer coordinate system to viewport's coordinate system. Uh-huh. Now hold on a second. Isn't this node, the character body, also inheriting eventually from canvas item? Ah, it's canvas item, not canvas layer. Okay, bunch of drawing functions. Get canvas item. Get global mouse position. Get global transform with canvas. There we go. So returns the transform of the local coordinate system of this canvas item to viewport's coordinate system. Right, so that tells us where on the screen something is. So that's perfect. We go back here. So we do get global transform with canvas, and then we'll tell the panel node to set the position to this value. And we fail. Oh, transform. This isn't a position. This is a transform 2D. Transform has an origin property. So we gotta go one level deeper. Hey, look at that. Beautiful. Now this means that the item still stays on the canvas layer, but if something happens to the game window, if there's zoom or anything else taking place, it's not going to stretch and distort the user interface. Right? We technically could. Okay, so watch what happens when I place this interface directly as a child of the player. So, you know, one might think, oh, why can't we just, I don't know, take this grid container, for example, and then just, you know, shove it as a direct child of the player. Because then if the player moves, the grid container moves. Well, yes, but then it's this huge. And it's also affected by the grass, the Z ordering. So we don't want that to happen. So instead, we keep the user interface in the canvas layer where the user interface belongs. And we just kind of work with it here. Now, I actually don't want it to be just at the bottom. So let's position it. Yeah, we don't need to move it here, by the way. Let's add a node 2D, which will act as a pinpoint or pinning location for the interface. Let's say right here. So inventory pin location. We're going to get the global transform of that node instead. There we go. And now it's nice and to the side. It is, of course, going to cover everything, but it's interface. Okay. Cool. So in this case, this means the D-pad is probably going to have to be used as a selector for this. What should be our inventory button? Y? Y doesn't have any uses, and the way we interact with other stuff is by whacking it. So, yeah, let's do Y. Unless D-pad is supposed to just automatically open up the inventory. If we do that, we press the D-pad, any of the D-pad buttons once, that opens up the inventory, and then we press on it again. Okay, so we could have, you press up D-pad, or really any of the D-pad buttons, but up D-pad seems appropriate. Up D-pad to open up the inventory. But how do we close it? We could say that when we shoot, it automatically assumes that you're no longer using your inventory, so it's going to close it automatically. Or we could have you press the pause button, which is we're just gonna close the inventory. If you do this, if you dash, you can close the inventory there as well. You know what? I think we need to change our dash button, because if I'm aiming at something and I'm dashing away, it means I have to let go of the joystick. So for the controller, let's do, since the left joystick is moving us, pressing that can dash. And that'll be more appropriate. Let's see. We're going to be destroying our D-pads or joystick buttons. Stick drift simulator. Yeah, there we go. That feels more natural. Okay. So let's do a variable. Inventory open, false. We're going to go to inventory, the UI process. Okay. We're going to make the panel appear and disappear. So panel modulate alpha, smoothly transition to 1.0. I guess I could convert this Boolean value to an integer. So we don't need the extra brackets. I was going to do a ternary operator. Minus the current value divided by 5. So it's going to be pretty quick. Okay. So are we doing the whole D-pad thing? Can I define multiple? Please tell me. Oh, that would be awesome. Okay, fine. D-pad up. Controller 1. Controller 3. Okay. And I think for mouse, we're just going to use the scroll wheel or the number pads. There's no like up, down, left, or right. It's just going to be you scrolling to get to the... Yeah, it makes sense. Scrolling to get to the proper inventory slot. Because the players with the controllers have to D-pad their way around it. So scroll wheel's a little bit faster, so you'll just scroll one by one to get to the right one. You only have 9, so it's not like there's a lot to scroll through. D-pad up, so keyboard next. We'll do that last. D-pad down. Okay. Keyboard next slot, keyboard previous slot. Yes. So next is going to be a scroll wheel down. Wheel right. What the heck? I don't get... Yeah, I don't got those fancy features. Just gonna wheel down. And then previous. Wheel up. Nice. Alright, let's get the D-pads. Up. Device 0. Antoine, welcome. 0. Don't want all of them. Device 1. Okay, 0, 0, 0, 0. 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, then we do left. Wait, this is not correct. This is supposed to be 0, 1, 2, 3. And then once again. 0, 1, 2, 3. Hey, you'll sup yourself. D-pad left. 0, 1, 2, 3. And then right. Beautiful. Okay. So we have the inventory buttons. What do we need to do now? We have to be able to open and close the inventory. So we'll do if input is action just pressed. This is D-pad up, or I guess no, that's just this one. If it's a keyboard or scroll wheel, we have to first check if the type of input is keyboard. But controller chosen input method plus D-pad up. This is only if we're doing a controller. We'll handle that afterwards. So this will become true. Nice. There we go. And what's next? Now we need to close the inventory. On the controller, we could use Y. I mean, we were kind of planning on using Y to open and close the inventory anyways, but that seems again counterintuitive, because you to open the inventory you'd have to lift up your thumb that you're aiming with to press the Y button. But then again, you'd have to do that anyways with the D-pad button. Yeah, no, why makes sense. Controller 0 inventory. Okay. All right, so what do we do for the inventory for the controller? Oh, for the keyboard. Q, E. Okay. Device 0. Device 1. It would be great if we could save input map to a file. You're talking about just generic Godot features, or in this particular project? Okay, so let's do this. If inventory is pressed, inventory open. What the heck? Hold on a sec. Keyboard inventory. No, that's not a thing. So we're going to do this. We're going to say that it is equals to not what it is right now. So that's going to give us a toggle. Which doesn't work for shit. Oh. Underscore. Nice. Now, not only do I want it to appear, I also want it to slide in and out. So let's do position plus vector 2, 0 on the x-axis, and then inventory slide is going to be a variable. We have to make it be present over here. Zero 0.0. The whole input that you created. Oh, you're talking about that. Yeah, that would be nice. Although, hold on a second. I believe you can. It's not in the most intuitive way, but if you go to your engine folder and open up your project.godot in... Oh, okay. Come on, give me a notepad. Yeah, if you just open up in the notepad, you can find key bindings. There we go. Controller, move down, move up, move right, move left. And then you can technically just find, there you go, input. Just copy this entire code block. And paste it into your, where is it? It's like, where's the end of it? Yeah, it looks like right about somewhere around here. Looks like this is the end of it. So there you go. You copy it. I'll post it on the Discord for whatever. Let's see. Perfect. There you go. I posted it on the Discord. And then you just paste it into your project and use it. And it should establish it. That's the cool thing about the Godot project files. Okay, that's cool. But let's see if we can get this slidey thing to work. So we made a variable called inventory slide. If the inventory is open, we're going to make inventory slide smoothly transition to one of two values. So it's going to be 0.0 if inventory open, else let's do 16. And then to make it smoothly transition, we subtract what it is right now and divide it by 10. Nice. You can see that it slides smoothly up and down. Maybe it's a little bit far. Weapon pivot. Nice. Okay, one more thing that I gotta do. When I let go of the aim control, of the aim joystick, it kind of snaps and then does a little wiggle in the middle, which causes this jerky movement in the character. So I'm gonna mitigate that by introducing an artificial dead zone, which is a fancy talk for going to our aiming code and just checking if the input of the joystick is bypassing or surpassing a certain value. So, where is it? If controller, else if joystick. There we go. So we collect the joystick, and we're going to take this value. I'm going to do if the length of this vector is over 0.3. Length is a method that we call on vector values. There we go. So now when I let go of the joystick, it just says, "Oh, okay, well, we're no longer in the range, so we're not gonna bother." And it just stays in the same place. The little recoil is awesome. But there's actually supposed to be a recoil on the player as well. So when we shoot, it's supposed to push us back a little bit. And it is one of the properties that you can mitigate. Cool. Well, I mean, we are at the 1 hour mark, more or less. We can take a short break. Love the sound effects. Yeah, it makes it sound very miniature because of the bit crusher effect on the sound, especially the gunshot. So it's almost like mini-me's type sound effects. Cool. Okay, so let's do this. Let's take a 10 minute break, and then we'll do inventory items, which hopefully will also give us enough time to do weapon switching. Yeah, okay. Oh no, apparently the video stream where during the pause I was playing Big Iron featuring Hank Hill, it cannot be monetized on YouTube. What a loss. Okay. It is what it is. I knew what I was doing, that's why I didn't record it. Okay. So, what do we have here? We have an inventory. We need to start by setting up the items. So each player can store their items. We'll make a variable. Call it inventory. It's going to be a dictionary. Now we're going to be passing same exact grounds we've passed so many times before. Our inventory slot is going to have to run some code. So inventory slot, except we want to save it into the scripts folder. And we got player inventory. Cool. So we need to be able to pick up items. Let's start with the fact that an item can be dropped by an enemy, and we would be able to, to pick that item up. Okay. As per the usual, we are going to be storing all of the item information in a central location. So that will be the master node singleton item database. We're going to be storing these things under inventory item IDs. So we do pistol, and then this item will contain, first of all, name, pistol, ID, which is going to be this ID, so that it can refer to itself at any point in time. Icon. This is actually going to be an icon which we haven't exported yet. It's the weapon without the hand. Weapon icons. Okay, I think that opened up already. Yep. Let's make sure we center everything. Yep. Well, that's looking pretty good. Nice. Alrighty. Let's export these items. We just need to export layers. PNG, 32 by 32 is fine. Ignore invisible layers. And what are we exporting from? Weapon icons. Okay. Oh, engine. Sprites. Weapon. Which I think I should actually not be creating any folders, because it's going to do so by itself automatically. So we should just be doing this. Sprites, and that's it. We'll create a folder based on the project name. Okay. So there's weapon icons. Background PNG. That makes no sense. Hold on. Oh, it's all called background. Oh no. Pistol, Uzi, sword, which is katana. Sure. Okay, so we got pistol. Oh, sounds like Anthony is playing Half-Life. Nice. Good old classic. Name, pistol, ID, pistol lowercase, icon. Yes. I think for now, that's all that we really need. You know what? When we drop a pistol, it might have some ammo in it. So let's say it's always going to have at least 1 round by default. Might have to change that later. Oh, and condition. Right. Because weapons can break. Or at least they could in the original one. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's pretty much everything there is for the time being. There's also supposed to be ammo clips, magazines, which haven't been implemented yet, so we'll add them to the item database afterwards. Let's assume that we can pick something up. We know that when the game starts, we should have enough resources to build a katana, or there should just be one in the level right away. Okay. How are we going to pick it up? I think we melee swipe it to pick it up. That's pretty much an action requiring operation. The player doesn't just walk over it, he actually has to swipe it to pick it up. Okay, so that means it has to be detectable. So we could do a static body. Dropped item. Sprite. Let's give it a shape. I think a shape is just going to be a circle. And then for default, let's use the pistol. Nice. Okay. Objects, dropped item. It has to be damageable by a melee attack. So another thing that we know can do that is grass. It has a group called melee damageable group. So we go here, add it to the same group, and we need to attach a script to it. We are going to give it a function, same one that grass has, which is damage. Amount doesn't matter, we just swipe it once. And queue... No, we don't queue free. The way we pick up an item is it levitates up and then disappears over time. So we could say that if it is damaged by a melee attack, we queue free the shape, so it cannot be interacted with again by anything else. And what else? Well, we need to deposit the item information into the player. And for that, the item has to have some sort of an ID. So let's do var item ID. It's an empty string. And I'm going to go here in the level, place a couple of these things, maybe right here. Dropped item. Now, right now it shows a picture of a pistol, but that's okay. We're going to change that. I should make this into an export variable so we can change it into katana, because that's always at least the first thing that you pick up in the game. And we're going to place 2 of these. You should probably make all your groups global so you can add any node to an existing group. Is that what that's for? Global groups exist in the game-wide? Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to start looking into using that. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have the dropped item. The dropped item is gonna have its item ID populated with something. So func ready, we are gonna make a variable called item data. It's an empty dictionary. We're going to say item data is going to contain the actual information, which is in a master node, item database, and then we'll use the item ID to access the item data itself. So katana would be all of this content. But we don't want to reference the data, we actually want to duplicate, because otherwise, deep duplication. So otherwise, if we just did it without duplicate, then if we make changes to this item, it also makes changes to this data here. We don't want to do that. We keep it on the straight. Okay, now it needs to display the icon. So we're going to take sprite, texture. We're going to tell it to load item data, icon. I guess it might be a good idea to make sure that it's only done once. You know what? We should do this here in the ready function, because there's never really going to be a chance that this item is going to change its ID, so it's okay for it to stay the way it is. And we crashed. Item DB. Item ID. Invalid property key of C. Oh. Not sure how that happened. There we go. Okay. Now we need to make it so that it's a part of the melee group. Open the slash. We have an area node, and it's doing detection of stuff in layer 1 and 3. Grass. Let's dedicate layer 4, or layer 5, I guess, to items. Layer 5. We don't want it detecting anything or blocking anything. It just needs to exist as a collidable object. Okay. Interesting. It's a layer 5. Oh, probably doesn't pass the checks. It should pass the checks. It's in the slash. When it reaches frame 3, gets the overlapping bodies, melee damageable group, and it runs the damage code. Well, maybe it does run the damage code, and I'm just not... Oh, yeah. Booga, booga, booga. I think it does run the damage code, and I'm just an idiot. Yep. It did, so... Right. We need to make it elevate up. So... var picked up false. Picked up becomes true. It destroys its collision shape, so it can never be interacted with again. And then sprite 2D position plus equals, let's do -16 minus, we're gonna make it elevate position on the y-axis specifically, divided by 10, and this is only gonna happen if picked up is true. It's never really gonna come back down. There's no point. There we go. It also needs to disappear. Let's do -32. Modulate A equals... I want to make it so that it disappears by the time it reaches the top. So I think if the position of the sprite by default is 0, then I could make it -32 divide by position on the y-axis divided by -32. Okay. Let's see, -10. Oh, can we do negative here? What the heck? We can't. Yeah, okay, -32. Divided by -64. That makes... I don't think it understands my logic. Yeah, because it just... Okay. Alright. Fair enough. Alright, let's just test this. So eventually we'll reach the -32, and the division should make it disappear. Almost. Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. This is a value between 0 and 1. So, shouldn't it be reverse? So it should be invisible now. And then as it rises up, I think there's a menu in the script editor to do a computation. It rises up. Well, you know what? I'll just do this. Absolute value divided by 32. Okay. So right now it does what I can only believe is the reverse. So if I do 1.0 minus this, then it should flip it. Okay, you know what? To hell with you. We're gonna use a timer. Tween. Tween property. Self position y and then the final value is -32. Duration is 1 second, and then we're gonna do ease, set ease out, and then that should make it rise up over the course of half a second. There we go. Except instead of 32, it's going to be -64. Oh, it's constantly running it over and over and over again. We'll just do it here, because it just needs to be a one-time event in that case. Okay. Hush now. Let's run this. Beautiful. 0.5. Interesting. Why is it so low? -32 pixels. That's quite a lot. Oh, self. We don't want self. We want the sprite to rise up. There we go. Okay. So ease out, but we also need to set trans, which is going to be bicubic. There we go. Another thing that we're going to do is make modulate A go to 0.0 over the course of the same amount of time with the same amount of smoothness and transition. Okay. That's not what I wanted to do, though. I wanted to make it run in parallel. And I remember somebody telling me something about the tween node. Let's see. Tween. Yes. Okay. So parallel. We do dot parallel, which forces it to run in parallel together. Nice. Okay. Cool. Now we do have a pickup sound. Scrap pickup, weapon pickup. So we'll do audio stream player, pickup, sound effect, weapon pickup. We're going to tell it to play. And then maybe also do the random pitch. 0.9, 1.1. Oh. Need my headphones for this. Oh. Hey. Nice. And yes, the katana does make a cocking sound. Fight me. Okay. Cool. So when we pick up the item, it's supposed to deposit item data into player, which means we need to know which player has attacked. Okay, so for that to work, the bullet needs to know which player has shot it, so that when... Actually, no. This is the slash that needs to know this. Okay. The bullet probably needs to know that as well for if we're going to be doing stats. My player null. When the player attacks melee, the new slash my player is going to be self. So the player who executed the attack. Now, when the slash deals damage, should we forward the player right away, or should we just do self? So it has access to the bullet, and if it had access to the bullet or the slash, it will have access to the player. Because I think maybe we might have to do something with the bullet as well. How'd you make the camera script that all players are in focus? Averaged all the players' position. So, got a vector 2. Carriage. Like this. New vector 2. Loop through the players in the group. Add up all of their positions. And then divide by how many players there are, thus getting an average. What's really cool about this approach is that if you have more players to one side of the screen, it actually prioritizes the side of the screen that has more players in it. So you see, this player's over here, but, everyone else is like, no, we're going this way. So, the average wins, so to speak. The majority wins, so to speak. There's something racist about this image, I just know it. Anyways, simple yet effective, indeed. Okay, so let's get... Okay, so the bullet or the slash will forward the reference to itself. It will forward the reference of itself to the grass, I suppose. Bullet. And then the dropped item will also have to accept this data. So what we can do is say bullet.myPlayer dot what? This is where we need to add the item data to this player. This should really not be programmed in the dropped item. There's likely going to be other stuff that needs to give the player stuff. So we should probably do this in the master node and then make this function use the master node's function to do its thing. Let's do master node dot add item or give item. Okay, so it needs to know who's the receiver. It needs to know the item ID. Or I guess we could just do item data. Yeah. Give item. Let's do pickup item. Give pickup item. Which is the ID. Well, if I only do the ID, then what if it's a weapon that another player dropped that has low condition? Right? If it's just the ID, it's going to give me the default values from the item database. Right? If that was the case, then yeah, we could just do the ID. But since I need to give specifically this item with specifically its stats, however few stats we have right now, then we have to forward the actual item information itself. Now, we will have to make sure that there's enough space in the inventory to begin with, but that's, we'll handle that afterwards. Or we can handle it right now by just doing a pseudo function and then programming it once we're done. Master node dot check free slot. So once again, we're going to forward the reference to the player whose inventory we're checking, and that's it. That's the only thing we need to do. If the free slot is available, it's probably not going to be that simple. We likely do need a function like this, but in this case, what if this dropped item is an ammo pack? You can pick up maybe half the ammo, but if you don't pick up the whole thing, there should be some remaining on the ground. So I think we might have to do this like this. Give pickup item, and then this will return This will return whether or not this item was picked up in its entirety or just partial. Okay, which means we have one more piece of data that we need to do, or two technically. Amount, which is going to be 1, and then max stack, which is also going to be 1 specifically for the weapons. We cannot stack weapons. Okay. Alright, so how are we going to handle this? Let's assume that when we give a pickup item, it will return how many are left over. So if we do item data, amount equals this. And then if the amount is 0, then we do this whole thing. And that's why this function is specifically called give pickup item. This is the one that we find on the ground. Okay. Just trying to predict if there's going to be any issues. So let's make a function. Pickup item. Player item data. Okay. I guess we'll just work with item data directly. Although we do have to be careful. This will forward the actual reference to this full item, which could potentially be a benefit. So if we edit anything here, it's also going to be edited here. Okay. Let's just do this. So first, find if player has an item like this. But we have to do that by looping through the player's inventory. So for inventory key or just slot. For slot in player inventory. And yeah, that's gonna loop through the keys. If player inventory key or slot, so we're accessing a particular inventory slot, ID happens to match the ID of the item. The next thing is check if there is space to stack. Okay, so once again, talk to the player's inventory. If the amount is less than, and then we could just technically check against its own max. Wait. Max stack. So if the amount is less than the maximum stack, then we can do our due diligence. Place item here. Else, we have to continue. So considering that we could have an inventory slot that's empty, so item, 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 empty, 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 item, item, empty, we have to have 2 loops. First one is to check for stacking, to check if maybe any one of the 9 inventory slots have the same item with the same ID, so that we can check if we can stack it. So if the amount is less than max stack, that means there's place to stack into. So we're going to take the amount, we're going to add to it the amount that we have to deposit. Amount that we have to deposit becomes 0, but now if after stacking the amount became larger than the maximum stack, then amount left is going to be whatever the amount is right now minus the stack. So the remainder, basically. Okay. Why don't we do this? If the ID does not match, we're going to continue. Just right away, continue. Which I think this would also account for there being nothing. So that's it. That's for 1. Stack the item. Check if can stack the item. Okay. Now, eventually, if we pass this, and okay, so after this loop, check if the item has been deposited. So if amount is less or equals to 0, which technically should just be 0, then return the amount left. Otherwise, if we still have amount left, next thing we do is check for empty slots to deposit the rest. So once again, we'll loop through the inventory, but this time we are checking if inventory has not the slot. So if not has slot. Oh yes, and this technically wouldn't account for the empty slots because it would only loop through the existing keys of the inventory. If there's no slot in slot number 7, or no item in slot number 7, there is no key for slot number 7, so the for loop wouldn't even know that there is a key 7. It was just gonna skip it. Cool. All right. Good. So here we shouldn't be looping through the inventory itself. We should be looping through the number of slots, which different players could have different slots if they choose to spend their points on slot upgrades. So the player should have the number of slots present as a variable. Or can we not just pull the node count? Inventory grid. Copy node path. I'm not projecting that there's going to be a saving system in this game because it's supposed to be like, you know, Nazi zombies type thing where you hold out as long as you can until you either die or, I guess, pass. So we can probably just say player get node access this node and then child get child count. So we're gonna count how many physical inventory slots there are and loop through that slot. So in this case, if the inventory slot has something, we continue. Otherwise, if slot is empty, well, if the slot is empty, then we should be able to just store the remaining data as it is, accounted for the amount no longer being the full amount. Okay, and then after this operation, once again, actually after this operation, we should just return. As a matter of fact, probably shouldn't even do that. We should just return after the whole thing. And then this has to happen only if the amount is still more than 0. So if there's stuff left to deposit, then it's going to go through the rest and see about depositing the items. Okay. Item data amount. I mean, I'm sure there's some logical issues I have not spotted, so let's get back to the dropped item. So it will return the amount. It will store that back into the item data. That might be an issue. This is why we need to duplicate the data and send it. Yeah, because it will be stored back in here, but if we send the reference, it will be modified on that side and then on this side, and now we have a cyclic dependency of dictionaries, and that's gonna kerfuffle things. Okay. Now, hypothetically, right now, if it works, we shouldn't really see anything visually change. Right. Nice. One. Interesting. So we did forget something somewhere. If we do deposit it, the amount left is supposed to become 0. Because when you deposit an item into an empty slot, you deposit everything there is. Hey! Okay, but there's still no visual report. The data should technically be there. So I know this is player number 1. If I were to pause the game, go to remote, player, and then access dictionary, inventory. Okay, so maybe that's not player number 1. Which player is it? Oh. Katana. We got 9 katanas. Right. Right. As soon as we do this, we're supposed to break. So as soon as we find an inventory slot that is free, we deposit and we break out of the for loop. Otherwise, you're just going to keep depositing the same item over and over and over again. Cool. I think what we need to do is, as we're looping through this, if the amount that is left is less or equals to 0, we break as well. Because eventually if we deposit all of the items, it will be 0. There's no point in going through the rest of the inventory. So It'll check that and break out of the for loop, which means it's going to go here. And if it still has more than 0, which it shouldn't in that case, bypass this, return the amount that is left, and that's it. Okay. That should be player. There we go. Katana, katana. Icon, ammo, condition, mount, max stack. We'll have a more definitive result once we do ammo. Okay. Cool. Let's make the inventory slot actually display this now. So our inventory slot has what? It is a button. Technically, it could be clicked. But I want the icon to be more fancy. So I'm not going to use the built-in icon of the button. I'm going to be using a... what? Texture rect icon. I'm going to set it to what? What's the dimension of the button? 32. 32 by 32. Just for good measure, set the center to this middle of it. I like when an item icon slowly pokes out of the boundaries of the inventory slot. So we're gonna do some fun scaling stuff. And the funny thing is that at that point, we know we're not gonna be pressing any buttons. This inventory is only for D-pad or scroll wheel. So is there really any point in it being a button? Can we not make it just a panel? It should still keep its theme. Nope, it fucked it up. Okay. Alright, sure. Texture. Slot. There we go. Easy fix. Cool. So process. What are we gonna do here? So we know this inventory slot is one of many. The inventory slot needs to know which slot number it is, so we're gonna do variable my num 0, and then we'll do it in the ready function. We do get parent, get children, and then among the children we'll find self. So that tells us the index, the number that we are within the list of all the children. That becomes our number. Now, we also need to know our player. So, var my player. Now, because the player can expand their inventory, this variable should probably be populated by the player. Okay, we're going to make an assumption that we know that that already contains the player. So in the process function, we're going to do if my player inventory has an item under the number of this, then we need to display the icon. Texture equals load. We're going to load the data from the inventory, from the slot that corresponds to my number, and then I like using this way. Icon. We're going to load the icon. And that should be it. Else, if there is no such item, null. iCoin. Oh boy. Where did I say iCoin? Did I say iCoin? Icon. Oh. There we go. Apple iCoin. Well, it doesn't work anyway, so boo. Invalid access property key inventory. Right, because I said we imagined that my player has a player in it. I didn't actually make it do so. Now, we could do get owner, but that only works if we pre-populate the nodes ourselves. If we instantiate these inventory slots, which is what we should do, then technically those nodes won't have an owner unless we set it manually. And that hasn't been working out too reliably. So We're going to do inventory slot preload. Preload the slot. We know that in the beginning, there's supposed to be 6 inventory slots. So I'm going to nuke all of this. And then we're going to do 4x in 6. Var... Oh, we can't instantiate stuff in the ready function. Right. We'll make a function prep inventory. And then call deferred prep inventory. There we go. Now that should do it. So 4x in 6, so it's going to loop 6 times. New slot equals inventory slot preload instantiate. Make a new one. Then to the grid, we add child new slot. And then new slot has a variable called my player, which is going to be set to self. Yes. My player set to self. That should do it. Okay. Hey, okay, well, it's displaying it. It's there. I can see it. Okay, so we need to make sure the icon does not have a stretch mode. Expand mode, keep size. Let's do... What do we have to do here? Fit width? Ooh, that is tiny. Which kind of makes sense. This whole thing is 64 by 64, but it really is 32 by 32. Sure. Export spreadsheet. No. This is export layers. Sprites, just right here. PNG. Group. No, invisible, ignore. Okay. Okay, that's a little bit better. Nice. Now, I gotta say, those icons kind of suck. We need something a bit less boring, like, you know, angled, maybe some perspective in the icons. We only have so many pixels to work with, so might as well make them count. Also, that's only 6 inventory slots, which for all I know could really be a perfectly fine starting point. Cool. Well, I mean, it works. It definitely works. Does the drop item ever destroy itself? It does not. So we should do call tween callback, and it will run the callback. Can we just do queue free? That might work. Hey, nice. The tween can just run the queue free right away. Nice. Inventories were the nemesis before. Yeah, I remember the very first time I was trying to figure out how I'm gonna do a dynamic inventory. Like, my personal choice is to store the items in one single place. So it's one variable called inventory. Makes it much easier to save and back up and store and restore. The inventories, all they do is they just display the data. They don't actually store anything. I find the whole concept where I've seen people do resources, for custom resources for inventories, and they store all the data separately inside of each and every item slot. And it's like, oh, no. Too much. Way too much. And the neat thing is that even if you have a list style inventory, I would still treat it as a dictionary or store it into a dictionary because, well, with arrays, if you treat it as an array, when an item gets destroyed, all the items shift by, one slot. Which may, if you have hotbar or shortcuts or hotbars, or like in Fallout, you can, if you have a rifle, you can quick assign it to quick key number 5 or D-pad up. Then when an item gets destroyed, that gets kerfuffled as well, and you have to go update it. Yeah, storing data in a single place, the best way to avoid bugs, in my opinion, is the best. I like the little mini recoil. Cool. Well, the next stop would be selecting a single hotbar. And that will allow us to select which weapon we're holding so we can perform, attacks. Why don't we also just, as a one quick little one-off, when we shoot, let's make the inventory slot collapse. Inventory open, false. Oh yeah, by making the inventory no longer be a button, we don't have to worry about the player accidentally clicking on the inventory slot with the mouse, because it's no longer a clickable user interface component. Nice. Yeah, there you go. Maybe when we melee, we should also close the inventory. It's like a little quality of life type thing. Love that recoil. It's cute. Yeah, man. Hold them hands up. I'm tired of this shit. Nice. Pop, pop, motherfucker. Nice. Cool. Okay, so that's 8 o'clock. I gotta step away for an hour. Probably gonna be it for today. Man. We got a little campfire pot thing. It's like if you have a backyard, but you don't want to set up like an actual campfire, and you have, stone floor, you don't want it destroyed, you can buy these little backyard campfire sets. Let's see. It's oh yeah, it's kind of like this. Yeah, something like this. Very, very cheap. It was probably like the most cheap thing that we found on Amazon. But man, I've spent like at least 4 hours last night just sitting there and looking at the fire. There's something about the therapeutic effect of watching something burn. Which doesn't sound that great if you're just listening to it. But yeah, the campfire aesthetic is strong. So yeah, maybe what I'm thinking is do that today as well, and take the laptop with me and do some writing. Because I gotta get the Child of Ether script up and running. I'm starting to hit a wall of where I should be going next, and it's apparent that I've pretty much worked out all of the most fundamental basics out of the basic gameplay, and now I need to focus maybe something on specifics. And without a script, it's a little bit difficult to do that. So, yeah, it'd be fun. Cool. All right, thanks, fellas. Appreciate the company.